Knights player Steve Crowe was able to resist the Super League, but he couldn't turn down the information superhighway.
I just had a crash course actually on the net, and well, it's very interesting.
He's just one of the players fans will be able to meet through the internet.
They can visit the site, they can leave messages for the players, they can see about our next games and about our results.
Oh, it's fantastic. They don't have to wait for a news broadcast or for something to be published in a paper. They can go and look it up whenever it's convenient for them, as soon as they like. It's fantastic.
Once the competition starts, the system will be expanded, with tens of thousands of people expected to join the Knights in cyberspace. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
With Sydney's meeting called off for the first time in 4 years, Newcastle's night-event program pushed ahead despite torrential overnight rain.
It speaks volumes for the work done by our staff and the fact that we have what we consider to be the best wet weather track in New South Wales, if not Australia.
With national interest on Broadmeadow escalated by the lack of a Sydney meeting, it appears likely the 2 million off-course betting record will fall, ensuring a healthy profit for the NJC.
I'd say that'd be fairly well in doubt today that that record will go.
And lucky not to go in race 3, Captive King, which dipped. Then Eureka was forced out of business on the first turn. But in the straight, it was an outsider revelling in the heavy going. Trained by Ken Delforce, Diamond Handout started at 20s, Cherish Me at 4s, and 10-9 on favourite Captive King, a brave third. With a trip to Bali on offer, the 15th Classic has attracted some of the region's best talent. Belmont's Christian Delaney winning today's 10th and final first heat, with Christian McCall just qualifying despite a penalty for standing up after the round had finished. Five-time winner Justin Lee is favoured for tomorrow's final, but will have some stiff competition.
I've got to go for Dan Frodsham. Him and Paul Parks actually have both done the ACC and various WQS events this year.
In surf lifesaving, visiting Central Coast Club Lakes has taken out the first Newcastle Carnival of the year. They were assisted by Peter Starr, who took out 4 races, including the Diamond Lady, while clubmate Drew Blatchford won the Ironman. And whether it be board or bull riding, the weather certainly isn't playing its part at the moment. The National Rodeo Championships got underway in a quagmire at Wingham last night, with the Central Coast Adam Church keeping out of the mud long enough to win the bull ride. $500,000 in fact. Max Lee's describing Zephyr's victory as his second biggest thrill in racing after Luskin Star's win in the 1977 Golden Slipper. This year he has another bright prospect in Stroll Along, the first progeny of another slipper winner in Torres. He may have the looks of his dad, but so far he's had 3 starts for as many seconds, his latest 10 days ago. A disappointing run which Lees believes he's rectified with a gear change.
He stirred up a lot before the race last start, and he did sweat up bad, you know, but since I've had the blinkers on him he has settled a lot, and I think he'll run a lot better with mine.
This week many have asked for a comparison between Zephyrs and Stroll Along at the same stage.
Probably thought Zephyrs had probably a better chance at this stage because he did win his race before. He went up there pretty well, you know, where this horse just got beat the other day, but I think with a bit of luck he would have won the other day. And, you know, away from a couple, they're not an over-strong field, I don't think, and he's got to be some hope in it.
The barrier draw for the Magic Millions will be held on Thursday.
Tomago Road is normally a quiet stretch, but early this afternoon there was a 5-car pile-up. Police say the crash was caused by a van which crossed to the wrong side of the road. 2 cars hit the van, which flipped on impact. In the Valiant, which struck the van first, was a Doyleson man. He received facial injuries. The other vehicle contained a family of 5 from Toronto. A mother and her 3 boys were taken to John Hunter Hospital by rescue helicopter, the children suffering only minor injuries. While the children's father and the driver of the Valiant were being taken by road ambulance to hospital, rescue crews worked desperately to free the 30-year-old driver of the van who was trapped by his legs. He was released some 40 minutes later and flown to Newcastle. Police say the crash could have been far worse. This couple from Erina swerved to avoid the oncoming van but ran into a car waiting at a nearby intersection. They weren't injured.
Unluckily, the Valiant behind me, I don't know, mustn't have seen him or something. He's hit him. Yeah, well, I could have been in the Valiant's position.
Police will interview the Nelson Bay driver of the van, who tonight is in a serious but stable condition with leg and chest injuries.
Inquiries revealed that it has been travelling erratically and on the wrong side of the road.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Pat Farmer's struggle to complete the 4,719-kilometre Trans-American foot race was one of last year's most courageous sporting achievements. He was one of the few to finish and did it with crippling stress fractures. Just months later, he's back on Australian roads, pounding his way from Sydney to Tweed Heads, a stroll in the park compared with his previous achievement.
You know, everybody says that, but it's still hard work. 100 kilometres a day is still very hard work, and it's hard to tell my body that we get to have a break after 10 days, you know. And my body's starting to think, well, you got me into another one of these Trans-American foot races again.
Unlike there, this proud Australian is now running to promote this nation's birthday. As one of 130 Australia Day ambassadors, Farmer will meet thousands on his run along the North Coast and will be guest of honour at several civic receptions.
It's not a charity run this time, it's not a competitive race, it's just trying to get a message through to people that they need to be proud of Australia and get behind the Australia Day activities.
Travelling at 10 kilometres an hour, Farmer will visit most major centres on his trip, arriving in Tweed Heads on January the 23rd. A busy schedule continues, leading up to another crack at the Trans-American next year.
A couple of things on the horizon. I don't want to preempt them yet because I haven't given a definite to them, but there's a couple of major races on towards the end of the year, and I hope to break a few records and win a few of those.
Lunacy plumbs to new depths in this locally written and produced school holiday show. The basis of the whimsical storyline is the 4 clown characters accidentally break the moon, causing it to fall from the sky. In an attempt to rectify this disaster, the actors perform a routine of traditional European clowning techniques. Madcap antics, juggling, balancing, magic, audience participation and acrobatic feats are all part of the fun.
Kids have loved it. Kids are quite perplexed, of course, by some of the magic in it.
I like clowns because they're funny. Because they're funny and they sit on people.
Mums and dads are sure to enjoy the show as much as the children. Philippa Scott, NBN News.
Ian Cleary was Newcastle's Superintendent of Police, holding the second highest rank in the region. He retired in June 1994, following what police claim was the wrongful arrest of a man on this floating restaurant on Newcastle Harbour. He always maintained brothel owners had conspired to get rid of him. 2 days ago, Commissioner Tony Lauer announced his retirement, still maintaining he never knew of corruption within the force. However, Mr Cleary says the Commissioner did know because he told him in February 1994.
I expect that he would have said, well, this is very serious, I'll get an investigation, even a quiet investigation, but I'll get an investigation underway. Instead of that, he said, they're good fellows, forget about it.
In a radio interview today, Mr Cleary said that because of sophisticated police intelligence, Mr Lauer had to know what was happening.
Would have known the little passings of monies and things of that nature. But he would have known the overall picture, what was happening. He would have had to know.
Mr Cleary also claims that a meeting was held in Newcastle in October 1993 between brothel owners, police and lawyers, where it was decided to get rid of him. He claims that there is corruption within the Newcastle Police Patrol, with certain officers suspected of being part of an organised group.
There is an organisation in Newcastle that is so strong and controls so many things, and it is crime-based.
Mr Cleary says he has brought his concerns to the attention of the Royal Commission inquiring into police corruption.
The merger of Orion and Sydney Electricity to Met North has led to job cuts. Up to 800 positions are to go under a voluntary redundancy scheme, about 200 from the Hunter. But superannuation payout rates are being questioned, with different power distributors offering individual rates.
It is basically because of different awards and different superannuation schemes that have applied in the past. But I must emphasise this is a voluntary offer.
Deals vary by up to $30,000. Unions and management are discussing entitlements, with both sides hoping negotiations can balance any differences. But according to Met North, outside super, the redundancy packages are generous. Workers with 26 years service paid a year's pay.
We believe our offer is in fact the best offer in the public sector, but it is short duration.
The union has advised its members not to be rushed into any redundancy packages. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
In previous years, the difficulty has been in securing a place at university, with the number of students outweighing the positions available. This year, that trend has been reversed, with a noticeable drop in student numbers. Professor Brian English at Newcastle University says one of the reasons is a fall in school retention rates.
We've now got the lowest group coming through school. The school retention rates have peaked, and fortunately youth unemployment is not as bad as it was. So they're the factors which explain the low number of applicants this year.
According to the university, enrolment numbers are the lowest they've been in 8 years, prompting the launch of a strong new marketing campaign in a bid to attract new students. Professor English says the tertiary entrance rank has been lowered on most courses to accommodate more students.
All over Australia. This year, the TER scores to get into university will be between 5 and 10 points lower than they were for comparable courses, say, a year or two ago.
Any mature age students interested in obtaining a degree are also encouraged to enrol. Emma Siossian, NBN News. The complex would cover a 20-hectare site at Pecolbin on the outskirts of the council's tourism zoning. A 2-storey hotel, function centre and winery would be incorporated in the development, along with a small shopping village and holiday cabins. It's one of the biggest proposals to go before Cessnock Council, which is attempting to balance the need for continued growth with the wishes of neighbouring residents and winemakers.
There are obviously lots of economic benefits in tourist developments, but at the same time what the tourists are coming to see is vineyards and great growing areas, and there's a conflict between major tourist proposals and what the Binyaronds are doing.
The residents' main concerns are on the size of the development and its effect on the surrounding agriculture. Cessnock Mayor Merv Pine has organised a special meeting to discuss the proposal.
At this stage we've called a briefing session to get the developer to come up and indicate to us how he will find solutions to these problems.
A decision on the development is expected within the next month. Emma Siossian, NBN News.
The Education Minister and local officials inspected the site at Salamander, where a unique $20 million centre will cater for 1,600 students, taking them through their schooling to TAFE.
Going from kindergarten through into adult training, no, this is unique, this is the first, and Salamander Bay has got it.
Port Stephens Council will invest $1.5 million and the former Orion Energy will supply heating and cooling systems using thermal, wind and solar energies. The government is keen to pursue outside funding for its schools.
It is important that we have the benefits of what everyone has to offer, including private industry, including the local community, including all 3 tiers of government.
The Salamander complex should be finished for the 1998 school year. Meanwhile, the National Party has attacked the government's commitment to country schooling following the HSC. Only 15% of the top 5,000 students came from country areas, despite representing 32% of those sitting the exam. But the Minister says the National Party's criticisms are a cheap stunt. He says country students are the equal of their city counterparts.
Some of the best passes we have in the state have come from country New South Wales.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Originally introduced to Australia from South Africa, bitter bush becoming a major problem when it was planted to stabilise eroding sand dunes after sand mining. But now bitter bush is out of control.
It covered 60% of the coastline. Now we estimate it's possibly up to 70%. So it is quite a large problem, and it is overtaking a lot of the native species and taking away a lot of habitat for native animals.
Bitu bush has no predators in Australia until now. After 7 years of research and 12 months of stringent testing, the African tortoise beetle was released today in an enclosed area at Marl Lakes. The beetle has been studied extensively on both commercial crops and native plants to ensure it only feeds on Bitu bush. The tortoise beetle eats the leaves of the plant, reducing its seed production. Once the beetles have increased in numbers, they will be released from their enclosure. If the tortoise beetle proves successful at Marl Lakes, it will be released along the New South Wales coastline, but it won't be an overnight cure. At best, it will be 5 years before the beetle's munching of bitu starts to show obvious results. Philippa Scott, NBN News.
Animal liberation protesters were given a close-up look at the elephants being used at Burton Circus, but they weren't impressed.
Absolutely appalling. We've got a line of protesters here and they've used the elephants, they've brought them out to break the barricade, to try and they've used the elephants themselves as some sort of a barricade. They've humiliated them even furthermore.
Demonstrators have been targeting circuses using animals, voicing concern about the way they're trained and caged.
The purpose of the demonstration itself is to bring forward to the public the life of misery, incarceration, the chains, the tethering, the cages, the life of the road that these animals are forced to endure.
While Animal Liberation wants the public to boycott circuses, Burton Circus says the protesters have been good for business, with a capacity crowd turning up today.
People are voting with their feet and we're doing very, very well out of it. Thank you very much.
Even so, further protests are expected. Jane Anderson, NBN News.